Another great interview for you guys. Do we do any other kind here on TYT Interviews? It's Ondi Timoner, and get a load of this resume. 2 grand jury prizes at the Sundance Film Festival for Dig and We Live in Public. I'm given to understand, Ondi, that you are the only person who's ever won 2 grand jury prizes in the documentary category at Sundance.
I was the only person to win twice ever in any category, but then, no, but that's okay, that's okay.
Okay.
But then what people don't really know is that the fine filmmaker Eugene Jarecki actually became the second person to win twice last year, I think it was. So I was holding that title for a few years running since 2009.
Well, then I've interviewed both of you, 2-time winners at Sundance.
Isn't he wonderful?
Yeah, so
Eugene's
that's great.
fantastic.
That's why we do these fun interviews. Okay, so now more on your resume, which I like. First of all, she does the show BYOD about documentaries on Lip TV. Okay, she did music videos, directed music videos for. I like this range: Jonas Brothers to Run DMC. Okay, so I grew up on Run DMC, so I love that.
Daryl's a good friend. He's a lovely human being.
And you've got Total Disruption, which is also on the TYT Network, okay, the videos that go up there.
We're honored and privileged to be a part of your network. I know it's because you personally love it.
I do. And I want to ask you about, first of all, what's Total Disruption?
Well, Total Disruption is actually a network for entrepreneurs and innovators. It's really a way of looking at how to use content differently to reach people where they live and to empower them and educate them all at the same time so that they can take advantage of this incredible opportunity we have that we've never had before in history. We all have the chance to create something out of nothing, to do something, to turn that idea into reality for less money, faster, and to find collaborators easier than ever before. And we kind of have to do that. You know, we were just up for a Total Disruption filming at The Last Mile, which is the first ever incubator inside a prison. We were in San Quentin last week. And these guys have never even, most of them touched a computer or seen the internet before. And they have a vision of what the internet may be like, and they're creating startups and being coached by some of the greatest in Silicon Valley. And for them, you know, seeing it through their eyes, they could never come out of San Quentin and get a job, but they can go and create their own company. And so it's really giving them a future they couldn't have. And if you think about the 40% of us that are gonna be out of a job, or the job's gonna change and demand very different set of skills from us, and some we can't even predict, it's a time to really start to embrace change, go with the flow, and this platform is featuring all of the drivers of disruption across all verticals of how we live, basically.
So if you're at San Quentin, you've already been a disruptor of a sort. But in a different way.
I was looking at that, the criminal mind, right? You're looking at how to do things maybe a little more efficiently. If you're a criminal,
that's what we're looking at. That's
cut some corners. There are some parallels to kind of a willingness to break the rules that are required of great entrepreneurs. So it's about shifting that set of skills towards something that can become a productive life.
They might have already disrupted your house when they broke in, and
could have been. They were disruptive.
But that's a unique way of looking at it, and I like that. And so I gave a speech at Google just yesterday, and I was talking about how old media is annoyed at YouTube for disrupting their business model, which is a sad day for them, because that's what disruptors do. You disrupt the way business was always conducted. And so you've actually talked to a lot of those folks, like Alex Ohanian was on Total Disruption.
Alexis Ohanian is his
founder of Reddit.
The story of Reddit that he tells is really surprising. You know, it's one of our most popular episodes, actually, and it makes people cry. It made my mother cry. Because then that's a big part of our mission with the Total Disruption is looking behind the veil and sort of pulling that veil back and saying, you are this, you could be this person. This is not unreachable. This is not just about the evaluation or people becoming, you know, really rich and we don't know how this happens, or this app that you love. There's someone behind it for whom this was a serious passion project, a problem they identified and they thought, I can solve this. And they stepped out of line to do that. And they became impossible visionaries along the way. And I want to try to unlock that in everybody, because that, for me at least, has been a recipe for happiness in my life. You know, since I picked up a camera 22 years ago, and where it's led me.
So that's exactly what I want to talk about. So how in the world did you get started in documentaries in the first place?
Well, I actually don't remember why I asked my parents for a video camera, but it was just a consumer 8mm. I was a student at Yale at the time. I was a junior, I believe, 19. And I set off across the country to visit my sister, who was then living in San Francisco, with my brother and my roommate. And we went into convenience stores and truck stops and toll booths and asked people what made them happy, what they feared the most, and what they thought of gays in the military, because that was topical in 1992. And and I realized, oh my gosh, people are willing to talk. You know, they'll share. They want to talk. They want to share. Now we see that has come true in a myriad of ways, and everybody can share 24/7, and they do with the internet. But back then, it became our mission to really kind of shine a light on people who didn't have necessarily a conduit to the mainstream, but whose perspectives were really unique. And in fact, on BYOD, the talk show just today, we filmed Rich Hill, the director of Rich Hill, which won the Grand Jury Prize this year at Sundance. And again, it's about 3 boys in Rich Hill, Missouri, you know, in rural America, who are coming from really, really tough circumstances, who never would have had a camera pointed at them. And it's infinitely interesting and lyrical and evocative, and it kind of tells you all sorts of, you know, it's relatable to your own life as far away as we are from that experience. So that's the power of documentary.
It is, and that's why part of the reason I love documentaries. But on the other hand, it's got to be tough to make a living in documentaries. Does anybody make money in documentaries outside of Michael Moore?
Yeah, I mean, I don't live. I'm not, you know, I'm not living in Rich Hill. I'm okay. I have a nice place that I live in, and I take care of my parents, and, you know, I've managed to make ends meet. It's about being, again, entrepreneurial. It's about being innovative. It's about thinking that, you know what, we've tried it a million times, where we make that feature, we spend our money, we have no idea if anybody's going to want it, we take it out to the market. I learned this actually with after Dig sold big at Sundance in 2004. I made a film called Join Us about mind control in America, and I poured a couple $100,000 of my own money into documenting 4 families who were escaping a cult. Yeah, I've regularly been fined to bootstrap things that I believe in, and so I didn't really think much of it. You know, I just needed to go document this. Bush had just won the election, in fact, in 2004. And it was predicated on a lie, and I knew that, and I understood that the populace was voting against his best interests, and so I thought there must be some kind of mind control in America. So I went
That's a great point.
Yeah,
okay.
So I went to a cult treatment center. Figured, you know, I'm going to uncover this conspiracy by the religious right, which I know you touch on regularly here on the beautiful Young Turks Network, and instead I found a bunch of lost people who were, you know, abused when they were younger, didn't come from strong nuclear families, who were looking for a new father figure, a way to feel like their lives mattered, a purpose, a higher purpose, something that we all seek. And I went with it, I followed it. When I got to market with it, the market itself had to have a massive downturn in 2007, heading into the stock market crash. Again, with We Live in Public, right after the crash, we came out with that film. So it's like there's these external circumstances that you can't control, right? But now, with the internet, you can't justify going and making a film without actually testing it, without actually putting a little bit out there, in my opinion, sharing as you go, and kind of trying to build the brand and the audience and the community, whether it's crowdfunding it or, you know, we're using right now with the Russell Brand film that I'm making, brandthefilm.com, using VHX powered technology to share the film as we go, to pre-sell the film.
That's really interesting.
You know, and that way you get a sense of what people actually want, and you connect with your audience, and you can even turn your audience into distributors. There's an affiliate distribution software that is patented by a company called Yekra that we also cover on A Total Disruption. And what it is like anybody who is your crowdfunder, say you guys did a crowdfunding campaign for the documentary about you that I was glad to be a part of as well. And in that, you turn your funders into distributors. So you give them a little piece of the action. So every time they make a sale for you, they get a percentage. There's all kinds of ways now that the audience can participate. And as an artist, I feel you really need to be entrepreneurial if you're going to make a living.
Yeah, I think that's got 2 sides to it. On the one hand, it's a wonderful new tool that you would have never had before, and if you had a passion for this, but you didn't have the resources or you didn't have the hookup, you know, it would have been nearly impossible to make. Now you can kind of take it to the public and give it a chance. The flip side to that is you almost have to be a business person as well as a filmmaker now. to get these things up and running and to run the whole project. That's got to be daunting for some people too.
I think it's very daunting, and I think that's what we hope a totaldisruption.com will become, is a place where they can feel supported, where they don't have to take all the time in the world. You can't go and Google, how to name your company and really come up with a satisfying result, or what to name your film, or how do I market my film. But you can, within the next several months, as we're building this platform, go to ATD and actually put in anything you're looking for and find first-person wisdom. We want to interview you for the platform too, but from Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, on how he named it, and Kevin Systrom on how he named Instagram and how he tested the name. Things that you might not be able to get before, and eventually.
That's totally interesting. Now I want to watch that, because I'm curious. I don't know how they named it. So, but actually, before we move on, I'm going to totally do an aside here on the cult question. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I love cults.
Okay.
I love talking about mind control. So
right.
Go ahead.
So my dad and I were watching a Mad Men episode that I had left on my DVR, and one of the characters goes into a cult, and we had a conversation about whether it's possible, like if your kid went into a cult, can you possibly pull them out? And so is it possible to deprogram? Is it?
It is possible.
And how do you do it?
How you do it is, I was lucky enough to document Wellspring Treatment Center, which is a live-in treatment facility, where you go in for a couple weeks and you go through a number of counseling sessions. But the main purpose of it is Robert J. Lifton's book, which I'm going to forget the name of right now. He basically looked at prisoners of war in China, and he identified eight sort of principles of mind control. And if 7 of the 8 are active in a group, then it's a mind control group. So I actually went and interviewed Lifton at Harvard, and he was talking about basically the war on terror, which is what was going on at the time, still kind of going on, and how the loaded language is one of the principles of mind control. So taking a word and giving it all this other meaning. Milieu control, controlling what people watch, what people read.
Well, that's really interesting, because we talk about that in relationship to Fox News.
Fox News is a perfect example.
So they'll take a word like Benghazi, and people, I think, have forgotten what it means and what it was for and what they're angry about. Well, so wait, what did Obama do? Did he actually do did he kill our ambassador? No, he didn't do any of that, right? He didn't respond fast enough? No, he did, right? It's just Benghazi. It's become a word. IRS, it's a word.
Exactly.
Cylindra.
Code orange. It's like you pull up to LAX, it's always orange, and it means we're in danger. And it's perpetual, and it's a fear-based sort of control mechanism. And orange used to be a really pretty nice color that you saw with the sunset and so forth,
Right.
So things come to take on different meanings. And what has worked, why this place had a 1% recidivism rate of people going back into mind control groups, is that they came together with people from all sorts of groups, and they all thought that what was happening to them was totally unique. And as they realized that this is something that happens across and in so many different forms, across so many different groups, from a model at the Ford Modeling Agency who happens to get involved in a church in LA, to a school teacher, to once they start to realize that these same techniques are being applied, and they realize that, then somehow they get freed from it. So it can happen. And it's but what was really heartbreaking to me was the mothers. Seeing mothers who had been taught to beat their children from day one in order for them to make heaven. They were told this, right? So now, as a mother myself, like the biggest instinct is that you protect your child.
Right.
From day one, even before, as soon as you find out you're pregnant, right?
Yeah.
And so that one instinct was completely subverted. And then they didn't know how to be mothers again, or to trust, they didn't know how to reconnect with that instinct. So there's definitely broken links that I don't have the solutions for necessarily, but.
That's interesting. I guess grounding them, like in terms of there are other people going through this process, like you said, maybe then gets them back to some degree of sanity. Fascinating stuff, but that's why I love your field. That's why I love your job, because if you have intellectual curiosity, you get to explore these things and you get to do them in depth and just swim in that. I mean, what a great job to have.
Yeah, what really addicted me to it was the first real film I made, which was going into prisons in Connecticut, women's prisons. And I would go into a room and they would let people come and talk to me. And they gave me access because I was a student at Yale and I was taking a class called Transgressive Women in American Society. Whoever volunteered to come talk to me, they'd tell me their life story. And as I would drive out from the prison walls, I would realize that I was leaving behind a lot of people who were trapped inside time, both the inmates and the guards, and that I, as an outsider with a camera as a bridge into worlds I could never otherwise venture, I was able to take some part of them, their soul, their story, that was also shelved away in a parallel universe we support with our tax dollars that we have no access to, and take it out. And they knew, as they went back to their cells, that that story was going to see the light of day and maybe reach other people, and that it would mean something. And that power, that transgressive power in itself, I could never let go of again. It was too much. I couldn't believe it. And now, that's why I brought The Last Mile up, because I've been so steeped in technology and fascinated with whether it will destroy us or save us. Right. We live in public. It's a very dark tale, warning shot about this time we live in with technology as well. That the combo of the prison system and technology that exists in that project, The Last Mile, fascinates me endlessly.
Yeah. I say this in almost every interview that I love doing these interviews because I always learn something. And your analogy of the camera being a bridge is really great. And so it's great in that I can visualize like a bridge from the prison, like over to the person who watched the movie so that they now understand what's going on there. But it's also a bridge in terms of, if I want to learn something, it allows me to use that bridge too to get into that atmosphere that I normally, or that subculture that I wouldn't have been able to have access to. So maybe for TYT, I need to think through a little bit more how we can use that bridge.
Yeah, I mean, it makes for a very beautiful life journey that's chock full. Anything I want to explore, find out more about, I go to the person or the people or the thing that I'm interested in, and I film them and I learn. So ATD, Total Disruption, is actually, it's altruistic, yes, but it's also very selfish. I mean, it's the greatest course I could ever take. I'm hanging out with the smartest people, that are most courageous in many ways, doing great things, and learning from them. So I learn endlessly. I'm like an endless student. But then I go to the edit room, like I am right now. I'm basically editing all night these days on my film about Russell Brand, who's a very disruptive figure in and of himself, and I get to kind of hone that to share it with other people, and that's where the writing comes in, and so that I love the yin yang of that life, giving yourself over to the muse on the one hand, and then kind of going into the cave on the other hand. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. So now on to Russell Brand.
As irrational a career as it is.
Right. Yeah. It sounds fun, but it's hard, and so
it's not.
I remember when I went into this career, my dad was like, "You are crazy! Don't do it."
I remember him from the movie.
Yeah. So Russell Brand, you're right, he's a disruptive force. And sometimes he says things that I can't get out of my mind. He was making fun of a Fox News anchor and like yelling at Obama, telling him, you don't have the balls to do this stuff. And she's like, he seems like one of those people on the internet that like gets paid to yell at you, like, you're gonna sniff my bum. Okay.
I don't know that anybody's paying him to do the truths. You're talking about the truths, which is his version, the true news.
Right.
The truths.
So what are you doing with Russell Brand?
Oh gosh, I am making a feature film about that man, that wild man. I actually made a short film as part of a Total Disruption that is at brandthefilm.com that you can get now packaged with the feature. He's just one of these figures who is on the same, Renoir said we all make the same film again and again. And I suppose if I would say what I focus on, it's impossible visionaries. It's people that don't see the impossible as impossible and are always pushing down boundaries and moving past them without sometimes rolling over them. And you kind of, it's the gray area that I love, which I also loved about you. It's like when I saw the movie, it's not black or white. You could say, oh gosh, that guy, Anton Newcomb in Dig, or Josh Harrison, We Live in Public, or Russell, oh man, I can't stand that guy. You have to respect their dogged determination to realize whatever that vision is that they have. And with Russell, his story is ultimately very relatable and very poignant in a lot of ways. And it's a story that I don't know that a lot of people know, and which interests me. Right. A lot of people haven't seen into his process. And what happened with him is, he's the everyman who was just addicted to TV, chocolate, sitting there watching, hoping for a day that he could escape the penitentiary of anonymity, the Essex, Gray's Essex, where he lived, and in a lower middle class town. And he was miserable, couldn't wait to get out and become famous. And he was determined to do it. And he would do anything to do it. And he did it. He did it, and he did it better than almost anybody in England, you know. And he came to Hollywood and he conquered, and he was a big movie star. And he realized he couldn't stand it, and that it wasn't solving his problems. Along the way, he became a drug addict, you know, slept with thousands of women, you know, tried everything to fill that hole, and eventually, sure, he had some good times, I'm sure, but you know, and on that part of the journey is really wonderful because there's so much material to play with in this film. There's thousands of hours of footage, which I always like, a lot of footage. It's going to be a very visceral film. And so his journey of kind of going, as he says, the long way around to realizing that fame isn't going to do that. You know, when he could have just gone and gotten into the kind of spiritual quest that he's on now to begin with. I think hopefully that will be helpful to people. Hopefully that will be inspiring to people. And certainly his newest incarnation is that, you know, he's gone back. He bought Laurence Olivier's house and never moved into it. He left on tour. He wrote this show that's pretty incredible, where he's sort of jumping celebrity towards immortality, something we were starting to talk about before the show, where he's looking at Gandhi, Malcolm X, Che Guevara, and Jesus Christ. And humanizing them, and at the same time relating creating humor around relating them to himself. But at the end of the day, it's not so far off. He sort of might have a bit of a messiah complex and might want to fulfill that, and it's not enough for him to be famous. It's not enough for him to be a movie star. So he's more popular than the Prime Minister of England in a lot of polls over there right now. And he's gone home to kind of to disrupt, I think, the way things are done in his country. So I'm watching that very closely right now while whipping this story into shape.
Yeah, you know, in my experience, money is real. It buys you things, right? And you can't get intoxicated by it, but it's real. It's a tool, right? Power is real. Fame is kind of empty. It's not what it's cracked up to be, because I think a lot of people want to be famous to feel better about themselves, to gain confidence, etc. But it doesn't really work.
It's not lasting.
Right.
It's like a cocaine high or something. You know what I mean? It's not coming from within, right? So, or unless you're famous for something that is a craft that you really do, that is something that you keep your head down and you do, then you can't help it. Fame is just a byproduct of that.
So Martin Luther King was famous, but it wasn't the fame that gave him satisfaction. It was what he did, you know.
Exactly.
And so you got to find out what that is and do it right. Fame is just it's like a diet soda. It's just got no calories, got no substance.
But at the same time, Cenk, like what we've been preconditioned to want, right, is fame or that brand to satisfy us. And you know, more and more, I think people are realizing, well, back when I started making films, there was no way to put your story out there in any way, right? It was top down. Now, anybody can post on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and they get that feeling that they have that 15 minutes of fame to 15 people, and they feel like they've accomplished something. And I just hope that with this film and that, you know, with all the work that I'm doing, there will be a push towards making people sort of take a look at that and say, you know what, that's great, wonderful, you know, but that's not the end. The end is not fame. That's not going to satisfy you. And at the end of the day, what can you do with that same power that you have in your pocket? Because you have more power than you ever had, you know, than we had in all the world's computers 5 years ago. We have in our pockets. What can I do with that?
I've talked myself into really liking my diet soda analogy, because diet soda also makes you hungrier. Right? And so just like fame, it makes you hungrier for more and more, but it never really gives you anything of substance. The trick is to do something of substance. So I relate to Russell Brand's story because of my dad. So a lot of times you find in Hollywood, like you think, oh my God, self-made man. No, it turns out his uncle was like a famous director or whatever it is, yada, yada. But no, Russell's really a guy who was, you know, middle class at best, you know, in UK. My dad was an olive farmer in southeastern Turkey. And whether you're driven to fame, and in my case, in my dad's case, just driven to like be able to not be an olive farmer in southeastern Turkey, right? And to provide for his family, it's that unstoppable drive.
Yeah.
Like, I gotta get there. Wherever it is, I gotta get there. My dad doesn't bother to try to find a door in a room. He'll just bust through the wall.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there's another character you're doing a project on. I don't know if he's similar, Robert Mapplethorpe. So what's he?
Mapplethorpe's another one. I mean, just I don't know what it is, but I'm attracted to these troubled figures. I mean, here he's long left this planet. But he was somebody who was a cultural lightning rod in his time, and as a photographer, he was driven to make us see what he saw as beautiful, and to appreciate that. So he kind of turned, very, very extreme images of S&M and gay sex and gay, and body parts into sculpture. He really made them into like sort of Greek sculpture, and his photography, and was very purist about it. And at the same time took flowers and things that we think of as very pure and showed just how sexual they are. And so he was very transgressive, and they always, we always pay the price for being trans. It's not like anybody gets out easy. So he suffered greatly for it, and he also, at a certain time, no one was famous without being photographed by Robert Mapplethorpe, and so he's just a really interesting person to look at a very interesting time in history. I think about the Dallas Buyers Club, which I loved as a film, and it was really that time, but in a very different milieu in New York in the art world, and I'm really excited to make that film. We're casting now, so that would be a scripted film. I'm also writing a film about my father.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
As always, very busy.
I'm not writing it currently. Currently, I'm speaking to you, but
you had to just clarify that.
I just need to, yeah, because I don't want people to think I'm.
I'm curious to see what, just random question, what your favorite documentary is not produced by you.
Oh my, that's so. First of all, if I was a careful and political person, I wouldn't answer that because I'm,
Right.
I host the only show about documentaries in the world, and I love so many of them, and so many of the filmmakers are my friends. I don't know that if I could answer that question, I would, but I have so many films that I love and appreciate. I mean, I could probably just tell you about some. I want to tell you about a film that I love right now, that I wrote an article about that published today in Talk House, which is Alive Inside. It was the Audience Award winner at Sundance, and it's about music's effect on us. And I actually had a series on VH1 in the year 2000 called Sound Effects, about music's effect on our lives. And when you have that moment or several moments in your life that are really pivotal and challenging, and somehow a song comes to be emblematic of that moment, or it helps you through in some way. Lyrics come in your head, you don't know how you heard them. Right. The subliminal power of music is unparalleled by any other art form, and people get surprised that I would say that as a filmmaker, but music, it goes through the air. It's invisible. It goes into your ears and your heart and your soul. So here's what it is. In Alive Inside, the filmmaker, Michael Rosado Bennett, is tracking Dan Cohen, who's a social worker who realizes that music can awaken, go in the back door of our memory and access the brains of people and wake them up, people who are long gone. There's 5 million people in this country with dementia, and there are 1.6 million in homes across America. Since the Medicare Act of, 1965, it's become big business to have these massive, nursing homes. And I think less than half the population have visitors. So they're sitting there and they withdraw. It's almost like they're in solitary confinement and they had no crime. All they did was get old, right? And we're all gonna get there if we're lucky. So they're sitting there and they're like, they're like dead. They're like the living dead. And some beautiful caretakers come over, massage them, try and talk to them, no response. Put the headphones on, $40 iPod, press play on a playlist that triggers old memories, and you see their eyes in front of you just pop open, and not only are they sort of dancing, but memories are coming back. Going to see Louis Armstrong, and then you realize as you're seeing this film, the treasure troves that we have shelved away. And what a crime it is that pharmaceutical companies really control what they ingest and control that business. And that really we've got to get behind this guy and all the people who are trying to bring music to, because it frees them. It frees these people. It literally makes all the difference in the world. When you see that reaction and it's like such a 180, you realize what sad and just unforgivable circumstance we have let happen in the first place.
Right.
So that movie you should see. I think it just came out. It's out. Go see it. Yes, I'm looking at that camera, but it's not one of yours.
So
go see it. Yes.
I know that's true with me with music. I mean, there's all these different songs that makes me remember freshman year Thanksgiving when I came back home and I felt great. You know, that's one of those songs by the Beach Boys for whatever reason. It was one of the later songs.
So you got to give me your playlist, and then when you're
right.
Shelved
right.
away,
but
I'll show up with an
I was literally
iPod.
thinking, like, I made a note to myself: give playlists to someone in case I get dementia. So, like,
for real, talk to your
Brandy,
parents. Talk to your parents.
And
about
it's totally random songs, like Brandy song when I was in Miami and I was having a great time. Another hip hop, an electric song that I wouldn't have necessarily listened to, but when I got out of work, I loved in that particular time when I was a TV writer. So it's so true, and so as we end this today, we build another bridge, because that's another powerful analogy, because music is a bridge. It's a bridge to that time in the past.
It is actually the last part of the brain that Alzheimer's touches, and it's a full-on epidemic, as you know, in America now, and it's amazing, because even if you know somebody who has the beginnings of it, it's a long disease, you can stave off a lot of the symptoms that are debilitating by playing that music. Mm-hmm. So music it's far more effective than any drug, and there's plenty of people to testify to that in this film. When I saw this film, I was just like, it's just the perfect storm, of emotion, of data that's important, of an issue that we need to get behind.
If I had to label this interview anything, it would be a bridge to somewhere. So I'm gonna, from now on, whenever I see a camera, I'm gonna think of a bridge, and whenever I hear music, I'm gonna think not only of a bridge to my past, but if I'm enjoying a song now, I'm gonna think it's a bridge to my future, because 10, 20 years from now, it's gonna remind me of today. So and again, why I love documentaries, because of all the things that you learn from it. And why I love
I've been so blessed to do BYOD, which is how we originally met. I mean, Bring Your Own Doc, it's called, and I think we're like 170 episodes in, and I just get richer every single day, because I am most of us filmmakers, as you said, we have to work so hard. I am in the unique position, as you are, of we can't be dumb on the internet, right? So it's like I have this assignment every week of either 1 or 7 films, depending if I'm heading to a festival to cover it, or 11 films that I have to watch. And they're other people's work, and I get to go into their process. So I just feel like you can see the whole world through documentaries, and I'm extremely blessed to have that job of doing that show.
Absolutely. So everybody check out BYOD, that's on lip.tv, and everybody check out Total Disruption. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Ondi.
Thank you so much,
really
Sharon.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.